The fifth ballad, the Pixie's triumph, or something darker. A high ballad of fate, fire, sorrow, and the uncertain crown of victory, the withering world. The world had grown brittle, brittle like frost-struck grass that crumbles at a mortal's tread, brittle like ancient dreams left too long in the sun of forgetting. Once, the forest whispered with laughter, with fireflies like drifting prayers, with the soft fall of leaves that glimmered in the speech of the Fae. But now the forest coughed instead of sang, its trees slumped like fevered giants, its rivers choked with ash and grit, its soil cracked, its moss pale as dying moons. Men had come, not evil, not monstrous, but hungering, and their hunger had no horizon. Axes carved lines through ancient roots, roads scored over sacred earth, and smoke rose like dark omens to stain the high, bright firmament. And the Pixie, the one reborn from starlight and sorrow, the one whose death had saved the glades of old, now flew alone upon trembling wings. Her wings, once bright as morning frost, were tattered lace, frayed by battle, burned at the edges by dragonfire and the grief of ages. Her light, once a golden spark that danced upon every leaf, now guttered like a candle trapped in a cavern of endless winds. And she saw the world dying. The forest she once defended, the forest that once adored her, had turned its face away, afraid of the fire she had brought back in the name of survival. The fire drake she resurrected from stardust and sorrow now slept in the molten caverns below, its breath a simmering prophecy, its pulse a volcanic heartbeat that echoed in her chest. And the Fae, they whispered of her in tremors, calling her traitor, savior, monster, queen. Children carved her likeness into dead bark, some in reverence, some in warning. But she flew on, for she felt destiny pressing upon her like a cold hand at the nape of her neck. Triumph had been won, but triumph was hollow when the world continued to rot. She knew something new was rising, something born of mankind's greed, Fae desperation, and the drake's restless dreaming. And she knew that she alone stood at the shifting fulcrum of fate. The mustering of shadows, the war drums began subtly, not as drums, but as tremors beneath the old earth. As the forest weakened, shadows began to gather, not merely the absence of light, but living silhouettes with wills of their own. They clustered beneath roots, sighed through hollow trunks, and flickered like dying flames beneath the moss-cloaked stones. These shadows were not Fae, nor were they born of human craft. They were the cast-offs of a world that had grown tired of being wounded. When a tree fell, its shadow remained. When a river dried, its reflection lived on. When hope shrank, its silhouette sharpened. A host of forsaken shapes awaited a master, and they found one in the Pixie. For she too was a shadow of herself, a creature torn between light and flame, between mercy and ruin, between memory and wrath. The shadows whispered, "We will follow. We will serve. We will devour the world in your name." She recoiled, for she did not want their loyalty. She wanted peace. She wanted clarity. She wanted a world that no longer bled sap and smoke. But destiny is never offered, it is thrust upon the unwilling, like a crown of thorns. And so she fled the shadows. Yet they followed. She flew to the Elder Grove, where the great spirits once met counsel. There she sought wisdom from the ancient standing stones, the guardians of old lore. Their runes flickered angrily when she approached. "You," they intoned, "who woke the slumbering fire. You," they groaned, "who broke the balance to save a dying age. You," they whispered, "are the harbinger of the reckoning that now approaches." She knelt before them, trembling. "For what purpose was I reborn? Do you name me savior or doom?" The runes crackled. Their glow pulsed like molten veins, and the stones answered, "You will be what the world demands, and the world no longer agrees on what it wishes to become." Then the forest shook with distant thunder. But it was not weather. It was war. The war ignites. The armies of men advanced first. clad in steel that gleamed like dying stars. Banners of crimson and gold snapped in the wind. They feared the forest, now feared its muttering roots, its watchful shadows, its unpredictable magic. But fear in men breeds conquest. And so they marched. Armored boots crushed soil older than any human kingdom. Torches lit the dusk with hungry flames. Engines roared like iron beasts. The Fae gathered at the heartwood. They were pale and proud, with hair like moss and autumn wheat, eyes like cut gems, and voices that sang of ages long forgotten. They watched the men approach with cold despair, for though Fae magic was old, it had grown thin. The forest no longer fed them as it once had. Their spells flickered, their wings drooped, their weapons grown from living trees creaked like dying sighs. And in the deep warrens, the fire drake stirred. Its molten eyes opened, its breath seethed through the caverns, turning stone to liquid glass. It sensed war, it sensed punishment, it sensed the Pixie, the one who had called it back from oblivion. In its heart burned a love twisted by rebirth, a loyalty forged from death, a rage nurtured by centuries of forced sleep. Its wings unfurled like infernal banners, and it rose. The Pixie chooses. The Pixie flew above the armies, watching men clash with Fae, watching roots impale soldiers, watching steel cut ancient spirits, watching fire rain from the drake's maw as if the sky were dying. She felt torn in three. Part of her cried for the Fae, her ancestral kin. Part wept for humanity so fragile, so mortal, so blind to the destruction they wrought. And part burned with the drake, a blazing instinct to cleanse the world in fire and begin again from ash. Which part was right? Which part was hers? Which part was destiny? The shadows whispered options. Let the world end. Begin a new one. The Fae cried options. Destroy the humans before they destroy us. The humans prayed options. Slay the monsters before they slaughter us. The drake roared an option. Burn. Burn everything. And the Pixie, little guardian of the glade, reborn hero, accidental villain, stood at the center of the unraveling world. She breathed, a long trembling breath, and then she dove into the heart of the battle. Triumph, or something else. What happened next would be sung for 1,000 years, but never the same way twice. Some say she unleashed a beam of pure starlight, a spell so powerful the sky split open and the winds wept silver rain. Some say she whispered an ancient word that froze both armies in place and turned the drake's flames to harmless embers. Some say she struck the earth and the world itself rose up, trees growing in seconds, roots binding men and Fae alike into forced peace. Some say she merged with the drake, becoming a being of light and fire, terrible and divine. Some say she died. Again. But this time she did not return. And others whisper that she ascended not as hero, not as villain, but as something the world had never seen before. Whatever the truth, the battle ended. The drake vanished, either slain, redeemed, or transformed. The shadows dissipated, as if relieved or conquered. The Fae retreated into deep woods never again found by mortal feet. The humans sheathed their swords and built no more roads through sacred lands. The forest breathed, slowly, painfully, but it breathed. And the Pixie? Her body was not found, nor her wings, nor her stardust. But sometimes when wind rustles the leaves, a faint golden shimmer glides between the shadows. And sometimes, when a tree begins to wither, it awakens the next dawn green again, as though kissed by unseen light. And sometimes, on the coldest night, one might hear a whispering flame deep beneath the earth, not threatening, but watchful. And it is said that when the world faces collapse again, the Pixie will return, not as savior, not as tyrant, but as the force the world itself demands. For triumph is never clean, and justice is never pure, and heroes, true heroes, are never entirely light nor entirely dark. Somewhere, in a place untouched by stories, she waits. For the world is changing still, and destiny is not done with her. Whether she returns with healing or fire, no bard can say. For she is the Pixie reborn, last spark of the forest, keeper of the drake's flame, beloved and feared. The world calls her hero, the shadows call her queen, the drake calls her kin, and fate calls her unfinished.